Okay, I'm gonna get us started here, and folks might join late. We're also, again, as you probably heard, recording this training today, so a lot of our folks will watch our recording later. It's hard to choose a time where we can connect with everyone live at the same time. So, welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name's Emily Heald. I'm the Rivers Educator here at the University of Wisconsin Division of Extension. I'm the statewide coordinator of Snapshot Day. And thank you so much for being here. I am going to turn off my camera for the sake of bandwidth as we go. But I'm still here. You'll still hear me talking. And so as we go, if you want to put any questions in the chat, if they're clarifying questions that we want to cover right away, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll also have plenty of time at the end to go through questions too. So this is the 12th annual Snapshot Day, and Aquatic Invasive Species Snapshot Day is a collaboration between UW-Madison Division of Extension under the Water Action Volunteers Program. We also partner closely with the Wisconsin DNR and the Citizen Lake Monitoring Network. So Snapshot Day, it's a one-day event where folks like you go out all across the state of Wisconsin. They are searching for aquatic invasive species led by a local site leader who's usually a county staff or a nonprofit staff partner. We also have some volunteer groups that lead Snapshot Days as well. And last year, just like this year, we had and are having well over 100 volunteers. So it is a larger statewide event. We get a ton of great information about aquatic invasive species distribution. So thank you again so much for coming today. I just want to give y'all a quick overview of where we're going today with this training. I first want to talk a little bit about, a little bit more about what Snapshot Day even is, the history of the event, because like I said, it's been around for a while, and then where we are now, how things have changed over the years. We'll go into what the day of schedule looks like. I'm going to show you how to identify just a few, a handful of species of concern, not for you to memorize right now, but to more get you used to looking at different features of different types of plants and animals and kind of warming up and melding the brain in preparation for Snapshot Day. I'm going to show you the monitoring protocols you'll be following. We'll go over safety, because safety first, how to fill out the data sheet, collecting suspect specimens, cleaning your gear, and then again, plenty of time for questions at the end, and we'll fit it all within our hour here. So, Snapshot Day history. This event began in 2014, and it was primarily focused on detecting aquatic invasive species, or we're going to say AIS for the rest of the presentation, aquatic invasive species. Focused at first on detecting AIS in rivers, specifically near bridges. That's where folks are most likely to release aquarium dumps, and things can get a little out of control from there. But Snapshot Day, in addition to the monitoring, it's also a really great way to raise awareness about AIS in general. And it's since expanded to include lakes and wetlands. We've always partnered with River Alliance and the Wisconsin DNR, but now the event is run primarily through UW Division of Extension, who I work for. And here we are today. We have over 25 participating locations each year. We have 25 this year. And again, we continue to partner closely with the DNR and Extension Lakes. Every year it's growing, and we have a lot of really great success stories of populations of AIS that have been caught early through the program, that have been able to be managed effectively. So I wanted to show you a few brief results from Snapshot Day 2024 to show you the big impact y'all are having by volunteering. So this map shows all of the locations where Snapshot Day was hosted across the state last year. And you can see we had 159 participants that monitored 82 different water bodies and over 100 locations on those water bodies. And with this chart, I don't expect you to be able to read and digest this whole thing, but what you're seeing here on the left is a list of all the different species that were found by volunteers. The blue bars indicate, the dark blue bars indicate instances where the species had already been found and cataloged. And the orange bars, the darker orange bars, are the new discoveries. So you can see all of the dark orange portions on these bars, and these are all new volunteer discoveries, which is absolutely amazing. And then I wanted to show you an image of where all of our Snapshot Day locations are in 2025. So, you're all signed up for locations already, but if you have friends and family across the state who might be interested in this event, let them know. We have really good coverage across the state. We have a lot of sites on the eastern, western, northern, central, southern, you name it in Wisconsin. We probably have a good Snapshot Day site for people to attend. And again, like I said, we have 25 locations this year for Snapshot Day. So, what actually happens on the day of Snapshot Day? Again, you already signed up for a site location on where to meet. Groups are meeting all over the great state of Wisconsin, and you will likely meet with your site leader about 8:30. But please be checking your email to make sure this is the time. Your site leaders are also going to email you a location to meet at, and they're going to give you all the details you need to know about where and when to meet. Most people are meeting at 8:30, 9 o'clock to start doing registration, signing people in to get ready for the day. Standard day of event stuff right off the bat. So signing in on our attendance sheet, looking at liability forms, things like that. And then your site leader is going to provide you with a brief training to remind you, some of the things you learned here today at this training. And then they're also going to provide local information that you'll need. So you're going to be thoroughly trained on invasive species identification of a few different invasive species, how to follow monitoring protocols. They're going to go over an example with you so that you can see it for yourself live in addition to just hearing me talk about it today. And then once you're all trained up, the volunteers are going to head out to the monitoring sites to search for invasive species and bring back suspect samples. So the volunteers are either going to carpool together, which is totally up to your comfort level, or you can drive yourself to the monitoring sites. And then the volunteers reconvene back at the training site that they met at to work with their site leader to identify findings of the day. And that's it. It's just a half day and it makes a huge difference. I just wanted to add a quick note about getting to your monitoring sites after you're trained. This monitoring sites may be up to about 15 minutes of a drive to reach your monitoring site from the training site. We also have some places around the state where the monitoring sites are very close to the training site. It just depends on where you're at. And again, carpooling is totally optional. It's dependent on your comfort level. You're welcome to carpool with the friends and family you're attending with or other volunteers, or you're also totally welcome to drive your own car. When we head out for Snapshot Day, we have the potential to look for 24 different species of concern. And this is the list of target species. We're not going to cover identification of all of them. We're just going to go over some of the more common ones. And when you're looking at this list, don't be intimidated at all. Your site leader is going to have additional information. You're not expected to be an expert or even be able to identify all of these now or later. You're simply going to look for anything that resembles some of these. You're going to bring them back to your site leader, and your site leader will help you determine if you found an AIS or not. So, in most cases, your site leader is going to train you to identify usually 4 to 6 different of these species. And they choose them based on species of highest concern in your region. So if you have a species that's very common, that they want to track the spread of it, sometimes the site leaders will choose AIS species that are not found in that region, but they might be found nearby. And so they want the help of volunteers to see, to know about an introduction of an AIS as soon as possible. So I'm going to go over again a couple little tidbits of identification today. Your site leader is also going to go over identification with you more thoroughly on the day of. And they're going to have pictures and specimens to teach you exactly what these things look like. Again, we just want to get you familiar with some different identification tips today. So, we also, when you go out in the field to monitor, we have a ton of resources that we're going to be providing for you. Some of them are posted on the event webpage, and then your site leader is also going to have some to bring with you. So, again, it's really not a scary thing to have to look for AIS. You're going to have tons of support and resources. And I just wanted to show you the inside of one of the little booklets that you're going to be able to bring with you. It's called the Wisconsin Invasive Species Early Detector Handbook. And each team of volunteers is going to get one of these to bring out as like a lending library. So you're going to be expected to bring it back. But inside this, there are lots of pictures of different aquatic invasive species and their native lookalikes. And so the visual guide here is really, really helpful. So we're going to go into identification. First up, I want to show you a couple different plants. And again, I'll just a little bit quickly through these. The idea here, just to get you looking at some of these characteristics. There's not a quiz later, so just hang tight and absorb some information. So I first wanted to show you curly leaf pondweed because it's pretty common throughout the state and it's a submerged aquatic plant. So that means it grows underneath the water. And when you hold this plant up, you can see really where it gets the name curly leaf pondweed. It looks like a lasagna noodle. It has these really wavy edges. And also, if you were to run your fingers along the edge of this plant, it feels sort of prickly. It definitely has some texture to it. And that's because the plant has what are called serrated leaf edges. Serrated, like a knife, right? Like all these little pointy bits on it. And so that makes the edges of the leaves feel a little bit prickly. And with these species that I'm showing you, I also wanted to show you where they're distributed in Wisconsin so you can see how widespread or not some of these are. So you can see each of these green dots here is a verified population of curly leaf pondweed. And, you can see there's dots all over the map here. So it's a real common one. Another common aquatic invasive species plant is Eurasian water milfoil. It gets a lot of coverage in the news. It's something that a lot of people have heard about, but it can be sort of tricky to identify because you have to look at really fine details. So again, if you think you found this, just bring it back to your site leader. They'll confirm it for you. But what you're looking for, if you took a small segment of this plant, you can see this is the stem here, and we have all these different layers of leaves coming up the stem. If you broke off one of these layers of leaves and then looked down on it, that's what we have here where this central portion is the stem, you can see we have these four distinct leaves coming off the stem. There's usually 3 to 6, but most often four little leaves coming off here. And then to identify Eurasian water milfoil from the many native milfoils, you look at one of these leaves off the stem and you count the number of these wispy bits, they're called leaflets, on one side of the leaf. And your magic number is 12. So if you have more than 12 leaflets, it's most likely Eurasian water milfoil. And if you have less, then it's likely a native species of milfoil. So put on your reading glasses or bust out your magnifying lens because we're going to count these here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, la 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 la. More than 12, so it's likely Eurasian water milfoil. Looking at a distribution of milfoil across the state, this is another one that's pretty widespread. This map isn't totally complete, but you can see there are dots all over the map here. I also want to show you one that is less widespread. It's called European frogbit. This is a floating aquatic plant, so it does have these little, lily pads that are floating on top of the water. Those leaves are about a half inch, maybe 2.5 inches diameter, and they're shaped like a heart. So you can see these little heart-shaped lobes here. And it's free floating with the roots hanging below it. It's not rooted into the sediment down below. And when it's flowering, the plant has this little 3-petaled flower with a yellow center. So we have white petals with the yellow center. And The first population of this species was discovered sort of recently in Wisconsin in 2021, north of the city of Oconto. It's in numerous areas in the Green Bay area now. And you can see that this is not very widespread in Wisconsin. And so, if you are attending a snapshot day around the Green Bay area, in northeastern Wisconsin, you'll very likely be asked to monitor for European frogbit. It's one that we really don't want to see spread much farther than this. Another plant I want to get you looking at that is not very widespread yet is very beautiful but very invasive, and it's called water hyacinth. So this is another floating aquatic plant. You can see it's above the water here, and it's another one that's not rooted, so it's free floating. And we have these very thick, waxy leaves. The stems have these inflated balls on them to help keep the plant floating. And we have these very, very beautiful purple flowers with that yellow dot on the inside. So looking at where that's been found in Wisconsin, again, not many areas, usually in private ponds or bridge crossings of streams because this is an aquarium plant. And so people have dumped it before and it's gotten into the environment in that way. Also going to go over a couple wetland plants. These plants don't necessarily grow down into the water, but we say that they like to keep their feet wet. So they're most often found along the edges of lakes or on stream banks. So I want to show you flowering rush. This plant's tough to identify if it doesn't have flowers, but it should have flowers when we're out monitoring on August 9th. So what you're mostly looking for here are these bright pink flowers. Their stem that they're on is a long triangle shape stem. So you can see if you were to snap it off and look at it, it has this triangle pattern. And then we're looking at these cute little pink flowers that it has, and they're in an umbrella shape. So you can kind of see that this looks like almost like a umbrella without the fabric on it, where it has like just the wire on it, upside down, and the ends of those broken umbrellas have these pink flowers. Here's a map of the flowering rush distribution in Wisconsin. Okay. Purple loosestrife, this is another pretty one, another very common one that you're probably seeing blooming in ditches and wetlands near you right now. It's purple loosestrife time of year. And purple loosestrife has these spikes of purple flowers that are growing very close to the stem. The stem is also angular, so if you roll that stem in between your fingers, you can feel its ridges. Its leaves grow opposite from each other, so when you look at it down the stem, the leaves are growing directly across from each other. And you can see this map isn't even complete because there's an organization called the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission that also maps purple loosestrife pretty extensively. But this is a very, very common one across Wisconsin. I also want to show you Japanese knotweed. This one can be pretty aggressive and very difficult to get rid of if you do find it in an area. It can get really tall, up to 10 feet, usually about 5 to 10 feet. And the leaves they're called being spade shaped. And they have a zigzag stem. So if you look at the stem where the leaves are growing along, you see how we're zigging and zagging down here. That's a good telltale sign. And it's going to be flowering soon, if not already. I haven't gone looking to see if it's flowering yet, but it does flower between August and September. It has these long shoots of these white flowers that are coming off it. They kind of look like fireworks to me. And then the stems, if you were to look really closely at the base of the stems, they're hollow and bamboo-like. So when Japanese knotweed first starts growing in the spring, it looks like straight up bamboo that's coming out of the ground. It's kind of interesting. And a map of Japanese knotweed across Wisconsin, you can see it's not super widespread in the northern part of the state, but we have, portions of the state where it can be pretty common. Then a couple animals to show you. We have a couple invertebrate species to show you. So we don't look for fish. We do not look for fish on Snapshot Day, but we do look for a couple different types of snails and mussels. And so the first snail I want to show you is called the New Zealand mud snail. These are New Zealand mud snails on someone's hand and compared to a dime. So what we're first seeing here right off the bat, super tiny, millimeters, 4 to 6 millimeters, super tiny. They are very pointy, and you see these different lines up the shell. These are called whorls that the snail can have, and it has, many, many whorls that go up here, up the shell. So that's what makes it very pointy. And then we're also seeing that this snail has what we call a right-sided opening. And so as we're holding this snail, pointy end facing up, okay, we see this opening where the snail, that invertebrate, lives inside there, right? And this shell is oriented opening to the right side. And this is your right. It's not the snail's right, right? So we can see this is opening toward the right on each of these shells. So that's what we're looking for. Really, really tiny, really pointy, and opening to the right. These are so tiny, they can be tough to photograph. We're going to go over taking pictures and collecting specimens, but if you find a very, very tiny snail, we ask that you collect a sample of this because they can be kind of tough to photograph. So we definitely want something in person to look at if you think you found these. They are not very widespread in Wisconsin, mostly in the southern part of the state. They like to live in cold trout streams. The other type of snail I want to show you are called faucet snails. These are a little bit bigger, half inch up to an inch. Again, you can see them compared to the size of a dime. They're a little bit more stout in their structure, so not as pointy as a New Zealand mud snail. We can see again that they're opening to the right, right, with pointy side up facing towards you. See how this is opening oriented to the right. And these snails are intermediate hosts for what's called a fluke. And so they can host, sort of like a parasite type of a critter, and that can cause mortality in ducks and geese if they're eaten. So this species of snail, the faucet snail, has been linked to large die-offs of waterfowl. And so you can see faucet snails are found along the Mississippi River in Wisconsin, also in the Lake Winnebago area, as well as a couple, smaller populations in other parts of the state. I wanted to show you zebra mussels because they're another common one that a lot of folks have heard about. They're kind of yellowy brownish with that D-shaped striped shell. So if you put it on its side, we have this really straight edge down here, kind of looks like the letter D. And then, just like the name suggests, it has what look like zebra stripes on it. So we have these darker bands, lighter band, dark band, light band. And you get this striping throughout them. If you live in the Madison area, you're probably very familiar with these from the Madison Lakes. And they're found in several different places across Wisconsin. Not so much in the northern part, but they're pretty common in certain parts of the state. If they are found up north, it's something we would definitely want to know about pretty quickly so that we can work hard to do education outreach efforts to prevent them from spreading to other areas. I also want to show you freshwater golden clam. This is the last aquatic animal that I'm going to show you. These are a little bit bigger. Usually we say about quarter shaped. You can see them in someone's palm here. About an inch and a half. Clam mussels, you can call them the same thing. And they're like a yellow greenish, golden, right? Freshwater clam color. And the inside of them, if you see any dead specimens, they have this kind of whitish light purple color inside. And the key feature with these that you can see as you're looking at them is that they have these elevated ridges on them that most native species of mussels do not have. And if you were to run your finger along these ridges or take your fingernail and sort of graze it over the surface of this mussel, you can definitely feel these distinct ridges on here, and that's the money feature of the freshwater golden clam and how you're really going to be able to identify it. And distribution of freshwater golden clams in Wisconsin, it's pretty minimal again, and we'd like to keep it that way. So again, no overwhelm when it comes to any of this. You're not expected to be the expert. That's what your site leader is there for. We're gonna supply, again, identification guides for your reference. Your job is basically to just bring back anything suspicious that you find, take pictures, and the site leader is gonna help you identify it at the end. So you can see these pictures from past snapshot days of how folks learn with different specimens that are set up. And then at the end of monitoring, folks come back with all of their samples, and the very nice site leaders help to identify things. And this is just a little snippet of the identification guide I mentioned earlier that includes the invasive species. So on this is one page on this side, and this is another, right? Because it's in a book. So our guides, when we look at curly leaf pondweed, you can get a good picture of what the invasive species looks like, as well as some of the native species that can often be confused with the invasive. So here's another example of Eurasian water milfoil, and then its native look-alike next door. So once you're taught how to identify a few different invasive species on Snapshot Day, then you're going to go out and actually look for them. So our monitoring protocols, they are included on our event webpage, which is listed here. It's how you signed up for the event. And then again, your site leader, of course, is going to cover the monitoring protocols and actually show you them in person. So before we go too far into the protocol itself, I want to show you a few of the tools that you may be using. So the first one your site leader is going to supply to you and will have you using, it's called a rope rake, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's two rake heads. We cut the handle off and we either weld them together or use a bunch of zip ties to keep them together. And then that's attached to about 35 to 40 feet of rope. And you use this to toss it out into the water, and you're wanting to collect vegetation that's farther away from you that you otherwise might not be able to see or reach. So you can see in this picture here, this person at the end of a dock is tossing it out into the water. And importantly, her teammate is holding on to the other end of the rake, right? So we don't want to lose any rakes in there. Sometimes rope rakes, they're going to be available at each site, but sometimes you want a little bit more control over what you're grabbing immediately in front of you, like this person is doing here. And in those cases, a garden rake can be used to gather vegetation and bring it in. Or sometimes, I'm going to show you a couple pictures of different monitoring sites. Sometimes the monitoring sites are, they're not very wide like this one is. And so a rope rake would be overkill. And then finally, this is optional. You have the option to make and bring your own hand scoop. These are usually made out of old plastic containers. So you can see this is an old coffee can. This was like a juice or a snack container, right? These are made by just drilling holes into the plastic container, and you can use that to scoop up sediment, and it allows all of the sand and smaller particles to be filtered through here, and then you're left with a more refined material to look for those invertebrates like the snails and the clams. You can also use your hands to sift through sediment. So when we get to each of our monitoring sites, there are three basic steps for when you get there. We're going to look, we're going to rake, and we're going to scoop. So with looking, you're just standing on the shoreline, scanning the plants, you're looking for shells around your feet and along the shoreline. You're basically getting a lay of the land. You're going to rake, so use a rake to toss in the water to look for plants, or if you're using a garden rake, you can do that too. And then we're going to be scooping sediment to look for critters like the snails and the mussels that we went over. So each of these steps we ask you to do for at least 30 seconds. If you have a site that is very sandy or very rocky, 30 seconds is usually plenty. If you have a site that is very heavy on the aquatic vegetation, you might need to go a little bit longer. So we're going to go into depth for each one of these steps. So step one, you arrive at your site. It's either going to be a lake or a river. And the first thing you're going to want to do is identify the boundaries of the area you're wanting to sample. So your search is going to start at one end, and end at the other. Usually 50 to 100 feet is a good goal. If you want to sample a little more or a little less, that's fine too. Each site is different, so it's hard to put, hard and steadfast rules on here. 50 feet is about the length of a semi-trailer. And we know, some places are very wide. So here's an example of a wider boat landing that you might visit, or along a stretch of river at a park. But some boat landings you go down, it's just a gravel road that leads to an opening here. So it might be really narrow. You might have site conditions where it can get really mucky on the side and inaccessible, or if there's a lot of, like bushes or small trees, that might narrow your site again as well. So again, just keep in mind this might look slightly different at each site. We're just going to modify it based on your site. So we're starting at one end and going to another, starting at one end here and monitor down to another. So as you work from one end to another of your monitoring site, you're going to stop 5 times, 3 to 5 times, 3 if it's really narrow, 5 if it's nice and wide. And we're going to try to space out our stopping points pretty evenly. If there is a dock or a pier, those are really good places to stop at because people who are using the water recreationally, who might be more likely to spread invasive species, often frequent the docks, right? So those are good AIS hotspot locations to check. And so we're going to stop 5 times, 3 to 5 times at our site, and we're going to do the following. We're going to stand there and scan the area for at least 30 seconds. Again, if your area has a lot of vegetation, you'll probably have to stand there and scan a little bit longer. If it's straight sand, 30 seconds is great. You're going to use your hand scoop or just your hands to pick up some sediment and sift through it, see if you can find any small animals or plant fragments. If you're sampling strictly from the shoreline and you cannot directly access the water or you don't want to, that's totally fine too. And also at each of your stops, you're going to throw a rope rake into the water twice. It'll be once more oriented to the left and once more to the right. If you're using a dock as a stop, we ask you to walk to the end of the dock to throw the rake. You can sample right at the boat landing like this person is doing in the picture. Obviously, be careful of boaters, but also know that concrete slabs at boat landings can have a lot of algae on them. They can be really slippery. So just like the person in this picture is doing very nicely and safely, you're going to want to stand off to the side of it. Some sites like this one, this very narrow stream site, this would really not make sense to toss a rope rake, right? You would just be tossing it into the plants. And so just, a couple examples of what your monitoring sites might look like. This site, you might use more of a garden rake situation or just walk in if you're comfortable to grab something that you see. And only enter the water if you feel comfortable. If you want to wade in to get a better look at things, you can do that, but it's also totally fine to stay on the shore. Someone asked if there's any risk to damaging natural habits with the rake method. Not really. When you toss it in, you are pulling up aquatic vegetation, but that'll reestablish itself pretty quickly. And then if there are any conditions where scooping is preferred to raking, ideally both. Scooping, if you usually have to get into the water a little bit to scoop, and so keep that in mind. If you're not comfortable getting in the water, we're going to forego the scooping. Raking, you should be able to do from the shoreline, regardless. So again, just reiterating that things are going to look a little bit different depending on the site you're at. It's not a one size fits all here. It's one size fits best. So again, you might have a dock, you might not. You might need your rope rake. You might prefer to use a long-handled rake, or your site might be too narrow for a rake at all. And then for anything suspicious, we ask that you collect a sample, take lots of pictures. We're going to go over that and bring those back to your site leader for help with identification. Here are a few more pictures of volunteers monitoring at past snapshot days, just so you can really visualize yourself out there on the water. We have a gal at a boat landing throwing a rake here. This is kind of what it looks like at some sites with heavy vegetation. After you pull your rake in, you can have a lot of vegetation to look through. This is a team of monitors right after the event, so you can see they brought back all of their samples in their baggies and they're celebrating their day and going over their finds. Folks identifying things on the side of a stream bank. Again, here, looking at reference materials. And then, of course, your site leaders helping to identify things once you get back at the end of the monitoring. In terms of what you might want to consider wearing and bringing the day of for, attire to wear, make sure you check the weather the day of the event and dress appropriately. So your local event, it'll be canceled if there are thunderstorms, but if there's just a little bit of rain, little bit of sprinkles, the event is still going to go on and you'll want to pack some rain gear for that. And then keep in mind, even if you're not entering the water, you're going to be walking on some uneven surfaces near the water. So even if they're grassy, grass can be a little bit uneven, especially near the water. So sturdy shoes are a good idea. If you are planning on wading into the water a little bit, make sure you wear water shoes or shoes that you can get wet or have a good grip on them. If you have waders, you're welcome to bring those, but those are not required. And then also don't forget to bring things like water, a hat for sun protection, sunscreen, bug spray. Um, the mosquitoes are bad out there right now, so I definitely recommend some bug protection. And then, if you recall when you signed up, there's a section on the sign up form that asks if you could bring any additional tools. So, things like the garden rakes, coolers, if you are interested in carpooling. So, each of you responded on items you'd be able to bring. So, be sure to bring those with you. You got an email confirmation after signing up, but if you can't find that email or you don't remember what you signed up to bring, just let me know and I can check for you. I see in the comments someone asked if drainage city retention ponds need to be monitored. You see those being monitored most often in our urban areas. So if you're volunteering in an urban area like Milwaukee or the Madison area, you'll likely be asked to check in different retention ponds. In our more rural areas, there's not always retention ponds there or city drainage ponds, and so those sites tend to be a little bit more rural. Let's go over some safety. A lot of this is common sense, but we just want to be really explicit about it. So, um, we mentioned concrete slabs at the boat landings. Those can be really slippery sometimes, so be very careful with those. Only do what you're comfortable with. If you're looking somewhere and, maybe you decide on the day of, I just don't feel great today. Um, or if you're just not comfortable looking or not comfortable wading into an area, don't do it. There's no pressure to do something that you're not comfortable with. Don't enter the water if there is a fast current. If you're wearing waders, don't do anything that would risk overtopping your waders. Um, don't climb up and down steep banks. Your site leaders are choosing safe sites anyway, but if there is a steep bank nearby, we don't want you scrambling up and down that. We would rather you skip a site altogether than risk your safety. So, obvious things that are worth repeating here. If you're not comfortable getting in or near the water, you're always going to be monitoring with at least one other person. So you can always help fill out data sheets. You can help take photos. We can help cleaning gear. There's something for everyone to do here. So speaking of data sheet, for each of the sites you're monitoring, you're going to be getting a data sheet that looks like this. It's pretty intuitive to fill out as you go with it, but we're going to go through it. This is what it looks like. And then you'll be in charge of all of the sections in blue here. So each monitoring sheet is going to have some pre-filled information with the site name. All of your sites have a station ID, so when we do data analysis, we can link back to station IDs. It's going to have the name of your site leader on there. Oops. But then you're going to be entering information with a writing utensil in all of these areas in blue. So you'll put the time you arrive at the site and the time that you leave so we can measure volunteer effort. We're going to write in the names of you and your monitoring partners here. And then we're going to mark the metrics of effort that you use. So asking, did you use a hand scoop? Did you use a rake? Walking on the shoreline, this means were you looking for invasive species between each of those 3 to 5 stopping points, or did you only look at those 3 to 5 stopping points? And then we're asking if you check surfaces like piers and docks. These are man-made surfaces that you'd be checking. So looking at dock legs, that's a good place to look for. Clinging invasive species like zebra mussels. But sometimes there's not a pier or a dock at your monitoring site, so it's okay to circle NA if that applies too. And then in this next section, this is where you're going to put any suspect AIS you think you found. Just make your best guess here. So in our example, we have someone who thinks that they found flowering rush. We're estimating an area here of this person's estimating 5. Make sure you include units. I didn't in this example, but you should, if you're talking about feet or meters, whichever one that you're comfortable with. We ask you to choose a density rating. So this one you can see the density ratings are down here. So what are you seeing? Is it just a few individuals, 1 to 25? Many small scattered populations, 25 to 500? Or is it a very dense population of over 500? And this is just for what you can see. You're not expected to go out and do a full survey trying to quantify as many AIS as you can see. What this is mostly used for is if you find a new population of something, you're basically giving information or heads up to your site leader on what they can expect to find when they go out to verify your findings. So are they going to be looking for just a couple AIS? Or are they going to be, hit in the face with a huge population? That's what you're indicating here. You're also indicating if you took a sample or took pictures, and then there's room for you to write comments too. So speaking of collecting specimens, when you find something suspicious, you'll want to grab some specimens. So ideally, you're bringing back a specimen. If you can't reach something, we're going to take photos and go over that. So you're going to be given Ziploc baggies for each of the monitoring sites that you go to, and that's to put in your specimens. Try to use just one baggie per site so that we're not mixing things up and keeping everything straight. And if you're grabbing a plant, do your best to try to include the roots, leaves, and the flowers and seeds if they have any. If it's like a big plant that's growing very tall, we looked at Japanese knotweed. That would be really tough to include. You'd need the shovel out there, and we don't expect you to do that. But you can take a piece of the branch of that with you. If it's a smaller plant, we have some pictures here. You can grab a handful. You can put those in the baggies. And then we ask you to take photos too. So if you can't collect a specimen, you have to take a picture because we need something to look at to be able to identify the species with. When you're taking pictures, just make sure that the image is fully in focus, and you can use a common object for scale if you want. Remember hands, if you have something in your hand, hands come in all different sizes. So we want to try to get the specimen on the data sheet or next to a ruler. The data sheets that we just went over, you can see in this picture, these are printed on waterproof paper. So if you drop this in the water, that's fine. But you can put plants and animals on here and not risk damaging this paper. And then the data sheets also have a ruler along the bottom. So if you have a ruler that you're bringing with, you can do that, but also the data sheets have everything that you need on there. This is an example of a snail picture that no one would be able to use for identification. So this person was very well intended, but looking at this snail, I can't see any of the distinguishing features of it. So we really want to make sure our pictures are in focus, or if you're able to bring a specimen, please do that. Someone asked if they should bring a knife or a tool to collect specimens. You can do that if you want to. Most of the species that we're looking for are easily just broken off by hand. It's nothing overly woody that would necessarily require a knife. That's a good question, though. And Laura, I see that you asked you're not sure what to bring, and I'll write your name down and send you an email about that. So I also want to go over decontamination or just cleaning your gear between sites. We don't want to spread things around while we're monitoring for AIS, right? So we're going to talk about cleaning gear. So after each monitoring site that you visit to, we ask that you clean equipment and footwear before you head to your next site, as well as we're going to do a big cleaning at the end of the day. The site leaders are going to supply everything you need to clean off your gear. And basically, you're going to be rinsing equipment with a water bleach solution and then rinsing again with water. We also provide these little scrub brushes so that you can scrub all of the dirt off your shoes that could be carrying invasive species and rinsing your equipment. We pull all of the vegetation off of our sampling rakes. We just make sure everything is very clean before we go to the next site. And paying special attention to your shoes. I wanted to show you this picture. These are the soles of waders, and you can see a lot of waders have these holes in them. And looking into these holes, sometimes they're empty, sometimes they have a rock, sometimes they have a freshwater golden clam. So we just look at our shoes and our footwear and our sampling equipment very carefully, and we want to rinse all of this away and use our brushes to get out any hitchhikers that might be traveling with us. These brushes that you'll be given, you can kind of see in this picture, have this pointy end. And that pointy end is really good for digging in all these nooks and crannies here. So as you're going, we're taking pictures of any suspects species, but also, go ahead and take pictures, document your monitoring, have fun with each other, take some selfies, and you're very welcome to post those images on any social media that you wish to. If you're interested in using hashtags and want to use the hashtag Snapshot Day 2025, then we can find them that way, or you can email photos and stories to me or your site leader. We really rely on these pictures to help promote Snapshot Day in future events. So we appreciate any pictures that you take and are willing to share. Also, when you sign up for Snapshot Day, we ask you if you're okay with us sharing photos, and if you're not, of course, we're not going to use your face in promoting the event. So, couple parting thoughts. You might still be wondering a couple things like who's in charge at my site. Your site leader knows that you signed up for their site, and they're going to be in touch with you ahead of time with where to meet and what to bring and some of their contact information. If you don't hear from them later today, you're going to hear from them early next week. So it's okay if you haven't heard from them yet. They haven't forgot about you. They're going to be in touch very soon if they haven't been yet. Remember that you don't have to remember everything. You're going to have a lot of resources available to look at the day of. You're going to get another short training the day of from your site leader. And so it's all okay. We also are going to have this recorded training and reference materials on the event webpage so you can reference those. And if you have any questions in the meantime, you can definitely let us know. My contact information is here. I'm always really happy to chat about questions and idea bouncing. Also, just want to take a second to thank all of our participating partners around the state. Like I said, we have over 25 host locations. Most of these hosts are county land and water agencies, but we also have folks like different nature centers that are supporting this event. We have friends groups, nonprofits, and so it really takes a village to put on this event, and we appreciate each and every one of you as well as all of our host partners. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording here.